Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Hey, welcome to Business Coaching Secrets. This is Karl Bryan coming at you with my boy Road Dog. Road
King
Dog,
Karl.
are you there, Big Chooch?
What's happening there, King Karl? You living the high life or what?
I'm doing my best, bud. If the high life means sitting up and writing emails when it's 30 degrees or the equivalent of about 95 in the U.S., then I'm living the life. But the good news is I got about 15 emails written, so a little bit of pressure off for the boy here. But anywho, that's the way she goes. So tell me, what's happening, man? And we got some action coming through, or what?
We got a few. Yeah, I've actually, what I've done is I've pulled together over the last month or so some more personal type questions for you, and just going down that rabbit hole a little bit before there's a few other ones, obviously that I see kind of on my list that are pretty awesome actually that I want to get to, but. Let's get to know the man, the legend, the king of the castle, Mr. Karl Bryan. Obviously, you get asked a ton of questions, dude. So let me ask you this: what is a question that nobody actually asks you, but you wish that they actually would?
Now this, everyone listening, this is the greatest question I think anybody could ever ask. This is whoever sent this one in is coming from a coach's coach from my heart. All right, so. What would I say? So the question that I get all the time, how do I get clients? Where do I get clients? How do I drive traffic, et cetera? And in fact, ironically, not long ago, I wrote an email that looked at something a little bit like, what did I say? I'm trying to think back to what I said in the email. But basically, actors are constantly auditioning, but there's not a lot of them that are out there going to acting school, right? In other words, they're just not that bloody good at it. And therefore, it might not be a bad idea to go refine their skills. Or again, an example I gave is that Jim Carrey, when he did Man on the Moon and with Andy Kaufman, he literally was in part for the entire, for the entire lot of filming. Basically, he was in character, right? So what I'm getting at and what I think would be a good question is, how do I become the best coach I could possibly be? How do I advance my coaching skills? How do I help a business owner? Like we talk about $100,000 in 45 minutes. Well, in the first 100 days, what if you put $100,000 in their bank account in the first 100 days? How would you go about doing that if you were me? Along those lines. So the training aspect of it, you can see it in so many professions. If you line up the chiropractors, you line up the dentists, you line up the doctors, the physicians, etc. It's no different in their industry than ours. Okay. But the reality and what I think is a really good question is, how do I take it up a notch and how do I become the best coach I can be? And unfortunately, the answer is a difficult one, right? In that this all takes time. There is not, this happens by osmosis, but over a long period of time. There's no steroid injections into the bum. But if I was a coach, I'd be taking a solid 25% of my week and allocating it to advanced training. And I don't think most folks are doing that, and the ones that are, it doesn't have an immediate payoff. It's a bit like eating broccoli or chocolate. If we have an event and there's 100 people coming, and we ask them in advance, would you like us to put out broccoli, carrots, celery, or chocolate, right? Well, all of the forms would come, 80% of the forms would come back, and guess what they would say? Broccoli, cauliflower, carrot, the vegetables. And then when they got there, guess what if we put the vegetables and the chocolate out, or the sweets, guess what would go 10 times faster? It reverses itself, and 80% of the chocolate and sweets are gone, and 20% of the broccoli gets eaten, right? So over the long term, you'd rather that you ate the broccoli. So this comes back to the training. When you train yourself as a business coach, you don't get the benefits immediately. The same way if you eat broccoli, you don't get benefits immediately. But over 10 years, you most certainly wish that you grabbed the broccoli before the sweets, right? So the training is the same. You don't necessarily get the benefit immediately, but over time, this is the only way to go. So that's the question that I wish we would see more often, which is basically just advancing coaching skills and finding new and creative ways to make the business owners, the clients, a whole ton of money.
That's good. I like that. It's funny. It reminds me of actually this past weekend. I had a couple folks say to me, because obviously I work out pretty hard every single day, but it's like I always love it, and I've never had this before, so it's I guess I've taken the next step in my bodybuilding sort of life. People are like, do you juice or what's going on? It's like, no, it's called working out 6 days a week for 5 consecutive years. Like, yeah. You always got to continue to get better at what you're doing, no matter what you do, right?
Yeah. This is it, man. And hard work pays off. And again, the first time 5 years ago when you picked up the first weight, again, you were sore. You didn't see really any benefits, and you were sore as hell the next day. But you kept cranking.
Well, and that's just it. And then, again, it's like that first phone call, the first no. You got to keep pushing. You got to just keep. It's not about them saying no. Again, yeah, once in a while you're going to have that person that's just being a jerk. But at the end of the day, how can you improve your skills to have a lot less of those and just become better all around, period, right? So anyways.
Have empathy. Right. When you call someone and they tell you to F off and get pissed off unnecessarily, just have empathy, feel for them. Because believe me, they are hurting in a very real and tangible way. And if you call that exact same person a day later, 3 days later, a week later, a month later, often you get a very, very different response. It's just fight with the wife, the kids acting up, too much pressure at work, too much pressure XYZ. The weekend went by and dad didn't get 5 seconds to himself and he's frustrated, and you just called him in a frustrated moment. So just have empathy, be kind, don't take it personally, keep going.
Love it. Personal path. Best, okay, we could do this actually 2 ways, because the question is best business movie you've ever seen. So let's go with best business movie. And then I also want to know, like, one of your top movies, you're flicking through the channels, it's Sunday afternoon. What are you not, like, clicking past?
Okay. All right. Okay. So we'll start with the movie. Wall Street is my favorite business movie, but I don't think that in the interest of the question, I'm thinking when they say best business movie, I'm thinking probably from Lessons. So I don't know that there's a huge amount of lessons that can be taught from Wall Street, apart from there's a line, information. I'm not going to remember what it is exactly, but basically just information is power. Actually, that might be it. Information is power. And that's what Gordon Gekko taught the Charlie Sheen's character. So Wall Street, love it. That's my favorite business movie. But in terms of movies that I've watched that I've learned from, I'd put Founder right at the top of the list. In fact, I've probably seen this movie. I don't know. I've watched it at least, I would say 50 times for sure. We'll continue to watch it. I'm not sure why, but it's just one of those movies. Plus, it gets me to sleep. So I watch it for the first, 40 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever, and then I'm out like a light. But there's some good business lessons in there for sure. Like there's a lot of these, like big companies, the Microsofts and the Facebooks and whatnot. Certainly McDonald's, there's these inflection points where everything goes to another level. And when you watch the movie Founder, which by the way, if you haven't seen it, the story of McDonald's, and I'd highly, highly recommend you watch it. I think if you're a pure business guy and or a gal, but you wouldn't be a business coach if you're not. So everybody should watch it. So one of the movies where it captures an inflection point for McDonald's is where he realized that his best franchisees would be husband and wife teams. Once you realize that, because prior to that, and you're watching the movie, you'll see that he was taking on investors and, rich guys that were out on the golf course. And then he would show up to McDonald's, which was supposed to be a system. And remember, a very simple system with, burgers, no lettuce on the burgers, right? Very simple burger, a Coke and fries. And then they're selling tacos and they're putting lettuce and there's a chili something or other that's totally not, it's not quote unquote McDonald's. And this was a huge challenge. But the investors, they had 18-year-old kids and managers in there. He wanted the husband-wife team, where the husband was behind the grill type of thing, the wife was out the front, handing out stuff to kids, etc. So that was an inflection point. Also, when they put up a sign, you guys might remember this, but when they started putting 100 million served, and then it went, then it continued to go up, and I believe it's $1 billion served now, and I think they've stopped it, but $1 billion served is what they had. But anyways, that, once again, there's an element of social proof that happened once they put that up on the sign. Boom, McDonald's went to a whole nother level. So anyway, so I think that founder, I think that, and also that real estate, he met with, can't remember the guy's name right now, but anyway, so he sat down and the guy goes, look, there's something wrong here, right? You've got this many locations, you're expanding this quickly, these are the revenues, and you're not making any money. There's something dangerously wrong. And by the way, I don't think you realize the business that you're really in. And he goes, what do you mean? He goes, you guys are in the real estate business, not the burger business. Boom, once they established that, and if you know the story, Ray Kroc started buying up all the land. The guy who owns the land really owns, the building on top of it, on it goes, and Ray Kroc took over from the McDonald's boys. So anyway, so that, once again, the fact that they're in the wrong business, if you have a client and you have the ability, like say they own a daycare and they're renting out the space, well, once they establish that they're successful and they're going to continue to be successful, well, find a piece of land. Remember, you want to buy, in a perfect world, like land appreciates, building depreciates. So in a perfect world, she finds a house that can be zoned for business, or he does, the family does, the husband-wife team. Get them to buy the land, build the business, over time, sell the business, keep the land, and then these guys pay you, again, just call it $5,000 a month rent for the rest of your life. Like, this is an intelligent business. That's a good business to go in. And as far as a strategic macro play for the daycare or any other business that you could think of, this is incredibly intelligent. A chiropractor, anybody could do similar. But don't get them to buy the land and then start the daycare, because, you know what I mean? If it doesn't go that well and the location's not good, etc., this might not be the greatest idea of all time. But anywho, so that's that's similar. That's a lesson you could pull from the founder and adopt for a lot of your clients. Social Network, without question. Again, I've watched that one, a couple dozen times for sure. Love the movie. And my wife gets sick of watching that one. Actually, she's the founder. She's okay with, but Social Network, she's like, please turn this sucker off. Some lessons from that, like infliction. Well, I can tell you some infliction points. There was, because again, they capture these often, like in the movies. So when he realized he was looking at a girl, and then his buddy asked him, do you know if she's dating someone? He went, he was half asleep, and he goes, oh, and he runs to his dorm room and makes an adjustment on your personal profile where you put your status. So it's either you're single, married, complicated, boom, inflection point, because all of a sudden it didn't become a dating site, but if you're following somebody, you'd like to know if they're in a relationship, right? So there was that. Also, when you were able to tag friends, okay, so Christian Road Dog, you and I put a photo up, and I can go over the top of your photo, click on it, and then put your profile, and now all of a sudden that picture now goes onto your profile. That was an inflection point. It grew massively at that stage. There was one other from the movie. I can't remember what it was, but hang on. I can't. There's an inflection point for Facebook. I can't remember, but the Facebook became Facebook. That was Sean Parker, right? So he came up with that for him, and he advised them. So anyway, so there's a few, but those would be the movies that I recommend. Sorry, I just had my computer shut down on me here. Anyway, so there you go. And there's probably a couple others, but those two would be absolutely. Actually, the Wolf of Wall Street would be another. Actually, there's Boiler Room. There's Wolf of Wall Street. My gosh. And Road Dog, you and I, we watched the Boiler Room together, right? Like, that's just an unbelievable. Like, if you want to get jacked up and you want to wake up on Monday and break some sales records, look, watch Boiler Room. The Wolf of Wall Street, the lesson that I would give you from that is you guys probably heard me say this, but, I say it all the time, but the crazy ones make all the money. Okay, in The Wolf of Wall Street, if you watch the movie, you can see that the guy's an absolute lunatic. And not that that's great, right, wrong. I don't think it really matters. The bottom line is you look at super successful entrepreneurs, very seldom are they vanilla type characters. So The Wolf of Wall Street, it's all over it. But anyway, so I think that those are some of the good ones. Probably I listed probably all of the obvious ones, but the founder, if you were to ask me the number one, the founder, and by the way, my background's franchising and licensing, so maybe again, there's a reason why that one, resonates on a higher level, but yeah, I love it. So there you go, man. Those are my favorite.
That's Michael Keaton too, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Mr. Mama.
Michael Keaton, he's a beauty. That guy's it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like some of these guys resurrecting their careers too. It's pretty wild. Okay, so that last sort of personal one, then I want to get to crank out some real good ones here. But is there, obviously, I think I'm pretty darn sure I know the answer to this. So I'm going to put a timer on you when it comes to talking about this. A hobby outside of business that helped you advance your career. And on cue, let's talk about hockey, Karl. Let's talk about that.
I'll tell you, it's not, look, okay, so of course you're right, right? You knew that one was coming if that wasn't obvious for everyone listening. But I'll tell you this, like my dad is an example. He's told me this a few times. Like my dad's been married twice, right? Well, my dad was a professional gambler, right? My dad played poker, like before poker was cool, my dad was playing poker big time. I just grew up with, that's just what he was doing, right? And so he met both of his wives in poker rooms, right? Is that a coincidence? And where you feel natural is where you're normally going to operate at the highest levels. Like a hockey dressing room, I've spent, my entire life pretty much inside a hockey dressing room. So I know the dynamics of a hockey dressing room, right? Like, again, I always say, like, it's great for kids because, like, if you're not loud enough, you get told to speak up. If you're too loud, you get told to shut up. If you tell a funny joke, everybody laughs. If you tell a stupid joke, everybody looks like you're an idiot, right? But that's life right there. It's not good. It's not bad. This is how you learn how to operate socially in pretty much any environment outside, like inside a hockey dressing room or any dressing room for that matter. Like it's one, you notice like when the coach comes in, people, kids, they operate at a certain level and volume, and then the coach leaves and everything changes and we start throwing tape at each other and that sort of stuff, right? As kids. And then as you get older, of course, it goes to, there's different social dynamics that go on, but it's an environment where I'm incredibly comfortable. So if you are a business owner and I am a business coach and we are in a hockey dressing room, it's just a place where I'm probably going to be able to drum up a little bit of business and most certainly some interest, and maybe it's going to be a referral, right? So if I'm sitting beside an accountant, we're probably just going to end up doing some business. So without doubt, hockey. So for those, so what does that mean for you guys? Like I would encourage you to go into rooms where you feel comfortable. Like networking would be a great example. And I got a pretty extroverted personality, but I tell you, I don't do well in a networking environment. I don't know why. I also haven't been exposed to it that much. So maybe this is part of it. If I decided to really dig in and I wanted to become the world's greatest networker and hang out at BNI, I'm sure I could get my head around it and improve and, become comfortable. But at this point in time, no, thank you. But I've seen people rip around, like they'll go into a networking situation and you just sit there and go, holy smokes. It's like they've got an engine on their ass and they're just flying from person to person and handing out business cards and getting business cards and, delivering their, value proposition and their elevator pitches, et cetera. So they're just comfortable. For you guys, you got to find where you feel comfortable. And the other thing, I like to speak in public. I'm just comfortable. If you give me a room of 10, 20, 50, 500, 5,000, it just doesn't matter. I really enjoy the dynamic of being up there. I feel really comfortable. That's not because and by the way, I'm not some incredible public speaker. I'm comfortable up there. I don't pretend to be Tony Robbins. I'm nothing, you know what I mean? I'm not that good at it. So what I'm saying, but I am very, very comfortable. So I can just, through brute, force, I can make a result happen. So anywho, for you guys, go to where you're comfortable is what I'm encouraging you, but without question, a hockey dressing room is where I feel. I would also, like what I find, like strong body, strong mind, right? So when you take on coaching clients, I'd highly recommend that you get them working out immediately because, what do they say? I just don't have enough time. The reason you don't have enough time is a lot to do with the fact that you're not drinking water, you're not working out, you don't have healthy blood and oxygen running through your body throughout the day, so therefore you're not efficient, you're half asleep, right? So take control of your mind, take control of your body, and you will take control of your mind. So without question, working out is another, thing, and I'm not doing it as much in this world, with kids and life and business and everything I have going on. I wish I was doing a little bit more. I managed to, play hockey a couple times a week, but that's just not enough for, for me to feel like I'm super active and moving forward in that area of my life. So without doubt, working out is another area that it feels good for me, and I think that you're going to find it's going to feel good for you guys. I'd be amazed if not. And also for your clients when you take them on. If you get them working out, you'll find that their results in other areas will elevate. And Road Dog, I would imagine you. I mean, nobody works out more than you. I mean, you're ruthless with it. So you know what I mean? I'd imagine you found that as well, and no doubt you're doing that with your clients, right?
Just a habit. That's all it is. And by the way, I really want to point this out to everybody. Like if by some chance, maybe you're at our conference or whatever in Cancun in a couple months and a poker game breaks out and you see Karl walk in, do not be intimidated by the fact that his dad was a professional poker player. You just welcome him and just thank him for the donation to the table. That's all I'm going to say. There is no, somehow certain things just don't, this must have skipped a generation. I have a feeling that maybe your daughter is going to be an all-star when it comes to playing cards.
I know, I'm hoping. Well, it's funny, Wade, a mutual friend of ours, sent me a message there just, I don't know what, it was a week and a half ago, and he was asking me to come to poker, but I couldn't make it. And he said, so do you want to come to poker? And I said, buddy, you shouldn't be asking me. You should be sending a limo to my house. That's what you should be doing, bud. And all the other guys playing should be pitching in, because, yes, I am terrible at poker intentionally. I prefer to spend money on it. The way I see gambling is buying advertising and turning it into profit in my own world. Sitting down to the poker table for 10 hours at a time is just, it's not in my DNA, and I have intentionally not. Honestly, I don't even, in case you guys do play poker, I don't want to tell you how bad I am, but, like a 3 of a kind and 2 pairs, and I couldn't even guess which one beats the other. So, but I do like sitting down playing poker over a beer for a short period of time. But
there you go.
Do that well.
There you go. All right, man. Well, let's pivot now. I want to get to some of these. As I'm sure I'm going to read all about this in the Chronicles of King Karl in the book when it comes out. But okay, so this is a good one. This came up actually inside of one of our Facebook groups here, and it's all about sales and it's all about closing. And again, we get a lot of prospects, and he mentioned the company. Let me think about it. I got to speak to my husband or wife. Like, what sort of tricks, what can you do to really push somebody over the edge? It's the whole think about a plan. I know you like to say you're growing roots and not going anymore, but what are you saying to really force them to make a decision?
Yep. So once again, this would come back to the very first question, so we're getting asked how to close well, and I get it, and how do you deal with objections, and just get that yes while you're there. If you're struggling when you're closing, I can tell you now you're not doing a good enough job when you're opening. So I would start with that, right? So when you walk in, what are the dynamics? What are your spidey senses, saying and doing as you walk in? So a couple of the tricks that I have, when I say tricks, I mean, I'm not talking about, it's probably a bad word for it because that sounds lame, but you've got to, when you go in, what I'm doing is I want to relate with you, and I want to compliment you. Those two things immediately, and they will build rapport really, really quickly. Okay, so again, I'm looking at as soon as I walk in, or as soon as I get you on the phone, my spidey senses are up. Or before I get you on the phone, I'm looking at your LinkedIn profile, look at your website, look at your profile, possibly your personal Facebook page, etc. But spidey senses are out for things that we can relate to, and then things that we can compliment. A beautiful family, relate. You got 3 kids, I've got 3 kids. You've got a 6-year-old granddaughter, I've got a 6-year-old daughter, that sort of stuff, right? So you're complimenting and you're relating. Super important. Not to mention, from an authentic point of view, you take an interest in this individual. It comes back to Jim Carrey, when he went into character for 1 month, he was in character, right? Who else is doing that? The other actors are not, and this is why he's the $10-20 million actor instead of the guy doing the commercials making $1,000. So there's that. Take a genuine interest. So again, just, at a very legit level. But then it does come time. I'd also say this: double the energy, triple the sales. I think that's something for me that kind of just came naturally a little bit. But I'm a high energy individual. So therefore, when I'm sitting with someone, when I'm speaking to someone, it's difficult for the volume not to go up a little bit, for the passion to come out. You know what I mean? It just comes out when I'm speaking, or this is what I've been told for many years. So I guess it's true. So double energy, triple the sales is something that I'd encourage you on. And then, but then it comes to crunch time, right? So you're there, because what we're really asking about, there's three baskets that I would put your coaching business in, and one is lead generation, two is conversion, that's getting the deal, and then three is fulfillment with the actual coaching. That's an oversimplified version, but I think it's a great way of just kind of rising up 30,000 feet and seeing it. So that we're talking about step number 2 here, which is the conversion. So some of the things that I would do, as a rule, and every situation is a little bit unique. Sometimes you just have to take the foot off the gas, because if someone absolutely refuses to make a decision, and their wife has told them that they've made too many bad financial decisions in the past and that they are not allowed to make one without speaking to her, you've got to read that, you know what I mean? And that the authenticity of what they're saying, and then trying to push is just it's going to break rapport, which is, number one foundation of selling, and you're going to be screwed. So on a case-by-case basis, you got to be smart enough to be able to read this. But as a rule, if you leave, okay, without them making a decision, it's game over. Okay? They don't email you in 48 hours and 7 days. They don't speak to their wife and then magically say, this is a great idea. Holy cow, let's go, right? Again, I know it does happen once in a while, but I always want to deal with percentages and not anomalies. So I would encourage you to, get really good at this and dig right in to make sure that you get the deal done. Also, before the meeting, though, if there's other decision makers, if it is a husband-wife team, you've got to make sure that they're both there. And if you get there, I have done this countless times where I would, and this is back in the day, especially when I was driving in my car and then, sitting down with you. Well, if your wife or your husband needed to be there and then you say, no, sorry, they got held up, they can't make it, I would pick up my goodies. No joke. People could I would have coaches with me and they could not believe their eyes. We had 2 hours carved out. We drive, 30 minutes, parked, got in there, done all the rapport, blah, 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 blah. And then I just pack up my goodies and go, because you don't get 2 cracks at it. And it's not like you're going to go through this process with her or him, and then they have to have the other, party present in order to make a decision. And, they're magically going to explain everything that you just talked about in the next 2 hours. And they're going to go, wow, that's amazing. Again, these dynamics don't work in your favor as a rule, right? So make sure prior to doing that call that you make sure the decision makers are present and with you. So then also now conversion. So things like here, this is a beauty. I think this would be up there with one of the top things that I've ever learned about the business coaching profession. And that's that I'll meet a coach who's really, really good, but they suck at sales, which is very common, right? If you can sell, you can't coach. And if you can coach, you can't sell. So they suck at sales, but they're a great coach. But because they suck at sales, they're kind of stuck at roughly $1,000 a month as a coach, right? Well, then the silver tongue sales guy shows up, doesn't have a clue what he's doing, but this guy can, he just, again, just bubbles flow out of his mouth when he opens it, so he can sell anything. Boom, he'll get a $2,500 client and above, right? The $1,000 coach gets pissed. And by the way, then he loses the client in 30, 60, 90 days because they're spending so much, but he hasn't worked all this stuff out yet, right? So here's a way that the really good coach can get them, and that's it. Let's say you want to be $2,000 a month. Well, you scale it 500, 1,000, 1,500, and then $2,000. So you make a $500 sale and get a $24,000 coaching client. That, in my opinion, is close. So, okay, so now let's go to conversion. So I put in front of you, okay, so how much is it? It's $19.97. Should always end your pricing in a 7. It's $19.97 per month. Now the client goes, I want to think about it. That's a lot of money. I think I want to do it, but I just want to sleep on it, right? I'll tell you what, if you want to get this going right here, right now, and as a favor to you, and then you put like some sort of a reason in there, because I wouldn't just go, oh, let's do it this way in a scaled pricing model. You should have a reason. Because you're a plumber and I'm highly skilled with plumbers, because you had a rough 6 months, I want to give you this, or because your daughter is starting private school and I know you've got a big expenditure coming up, I'd like to, provide you some allowance for that, and then do your 500,000, 1,500, and then $2,000. Give a reason. But if you sign today, let's do this, because I don't want to leave and fart around and have to come back. Look, I want to leave while this stuff is all fresh. I'm putting together the roadmap to help you take this thing to all new heights. I don't want to start that process in 3 or 4 days when I've forgotten half of it. I want to start it tomorrow morning when I wake up at 6 a.m. Let's do this. So something along those lines. But that is a great little, conversion tactic. I'd also put the story, and this is so true, but okay, so the next 3 days, so we Road Dog, you and I sit down, and I'm trying to sell you coaching, and then you say, let me think about it. And I would just say, look, Road Dog, so when are you going to get back to me? And then you go Thursday, and it's Monday, right? Well, I say, look, Road Dog, between Monday and Thursday, like today and Thursday, you've got two options. One is you can, think about whether or not this is a good idea and if we should move forward, and whether or not I'm going to provide value and follow through, and whether or not you're in a situation to be able to take advantage of this coaching and pay the $2,000 a month. Or between now, Monday and Thursday, you could think about this. Carl's here talking a good game. He says he can elevate me. He says we can do this, that, the other. You could think about over the next 3 days, or 4 days, I guess that would be. But over the next 4 days, you could be thinking about how to use my expertise, your ability to do X, Y, Z, the business, and for us to take this to an entirely new heights and achieve that goal of $1 million. That's what you could be thinking about. What do you think is a better use of your next 4 days? Right? Well, no, by the way, that has worked very, very well for me, where I go, geez, there's your option. Like, let's go. Like, you're sitting here telling me you want to do, and then maybe I'll add into that maybe the price break to say, you know what, and here's what I'm also going to do. I know you got the school fees coming up. September's around the corner, or whatever month it is. Boom, let's do it in this manner. So stuff like that is what I would do. And there's just and at the end of the day, it's just sales. Here's the X factor of everything I just said. Sales is about certainty. Okay. If they don't say yes, they're not certain enough on the result. End of story. And that comes back to the language. So this is the entire process when you meet them, as you go through the sales process and the questions when you're sitting with them, and the way you do your close and the way you handle your objections. You just need to be 100% certain that you're going to get them the result. Because if two people sit together and they have rapport, they got rapport, it's game over. So the two of us sit together. If there is rapport, the person with the most certainty will influence the other. End of story, 100% of the time. So I think that that's powerful to understand what's really happening. And the question is, are you certain? Like, it comes back to the very first question today. What's the question that I wish people would ask me? And it's that, like, how to actually help these clients at the highest level. So it's like when I talk to a business coach and they say, Carl, can you help me with? I mean, there's pretty much nothing that could come out of their mouth that I don't feel like I've got a bulletproof solution. Can I help you generate leads? Yes. Can I help you convert coaching clients? Yes. Can I help you take your coaching fees from $1,000 to $3,000 a month? Yes. Can I help you build a $100,000 coaching program? Yes. Can I help you do a public speaking event and murder it? Yes. Can I help you with the close of that speaking event to make sure that if you got 20 prospects in the room, that 20 say yes? Yes. Can I help you fill a room with 25 business owners, 25 decision makers within 10 days? Yes. You know what I mean? So there's no question. So there's total certainty. And my question is, do you have total certainty? And if you do, are you bringing that across at the highest possible level? Because if they don't say yes, the thing lacking is certainty at the end of the day. So when you're willing to go 500, 1,000, 1,500, $2,000, again, think of what that says. in terms of your confidence in your coaching program, right? That they're going to be they're going to be around for a long time. So certainty, that is just the absolute star goes beside that big time road dog. So that's how and there's a few other its and bits. At the end of the day, you just got to be dogmatic. In fact, let me finish with this. If someone you loved had cancer, and then you had a legitimate cure to that cancer, and don't kid yourself, guys, somebody in your life could have cancer, you could have a cure, they won't take it. This is just reality, because it's people, it's like, have chemotherapy, but then people say, no, I'm not doing chemotherapy, I'm doing, I'm doing XYZ, I'm doing the natural stuff, right? And the doctor's sitting there going, yeah, but this is what's going to save you. And you're like, now I've read the books, I believe these other people, etc. So just because you have the cure to cancer doesn't mean people just grab it, shove it in their mouth. And remember, you love this person big time, okay? And they have cancer, you have a cure. If they didn't take it, would you ask them once and give up? No, you would get playful, you would get demanding, you would, get pissed off. You know what I mean? You would take all different lines of approach, but at the end of the day, you wouldn't take no for an answer. And if you did take no for an answer, it would be pretty bloody hard to convince you. You know what I mean? You kind of follow. So when you're sitting with the coaching client, I want you to think about that as the dynamic. Like, you're just not taking no for an answer. So in Road Dog, you said earlier, like, I grew roots. That's what coaches, that's literally what they would say to me constantly, right? You go with a sales meeting with Karl, he grows roots in the chair. I'm just not leaving until you say yes. And I will find a way, even if it's just to get me out of the joint, right? Which did happen once in a while. But the thing is, we delivered. So guess what? Who's doing who the favor here? Like, when somebody says yes to me and they're a business coach and they work with us, like, they're not doing us the favor. We don't say thank you. We say congratulations. Totally different. And by the way, you should also do that. When someone says yes to you, being your coach, say congratulations. You can also say thank you, litter that in. But the message you bring across is congrats, not, oh, wow, this is amazing. I can't believe I'm able to feed my kids this month type of thing, right? It's totally wrong approach, total wrong dynamic. So there you go. In fact, actually, one other, I think, and actually this is another beauty. Again, when I say trick, it's not a trick, but just something I would do. When I was doing face-to-face closing, once I saw specialists work so well man-to-man, but as soon as, Road Dog, I'm trying to sell you, and I feel like, look, it's going in the right direction. You've been squirming in your chair a little bit, humming and hawing. I offer the scaled pricing. I offer this, I offer that, the discount to get started. And I look at you, I nod my head, and I reach across the table. And by the way, when you're selling somebody, you don't want to be directly across from them. Once again, alpha to alpha, not good. You want to be beside them in a perfect world. So just think if you have a table, you want to be sitting beside them at the table in a perfect sales position, not straight in front of them. But anyway, so I would reach out when I felt like I had you, and you were sitting there and you were like, oh man, I think he's got me. Look, let's do this, man, and let's take this thing to the moon. And he's right. Over the next 4 days, man, I should be thinking about working this little guy's butt off, not whether or not he's going to be able to fulfill on what he said. I hold out my hand for you to shake it. Boom, game over. As soon as you shake my hand, it's, just man to man. This is our word. This is it. This is our bond, and we're good. So that's how I would get the deal closed. And then I would slip you the paperwork. Most people slip the paperwork and then they shake hands. I reverse that order. Worked very, very well for me.
That's
so there
awesome.
You go, Road Dog. A few little.
I like it. I hear a lot of a couple things that I like is when somebody has an objection or when somebody, and again, to push them over the edge, this is your first opportunity to coach them, right?
Yeah.
Like,
oh, dude, yes, that's beautiful.
Right. I always look at it this way. They've come to you. They've accepted the meeting. You're there for a reason, right? So it blows my mind how somehow the power, if you will, shifts, where it's like now you're asking them for almost a favor to work with you. It's like, no, you came to me for a reason, and I know I have the solution for you. So you're either going to say yes to me helping you, or you're going to say yes to the continuation of the hell that you're currently in.
Yeah, high five, dude. That's beautiful. That's
right. And it's also one thing I got from what you just said, Karl, was it's mentally, right? Like, let's think about this for a sec. Where are you at mentally when you're sitting in front of a prospect? Like, truly, are you caring more about closing the sale and putting the dollars in your bank account, or are you sitting there going, like the pill for cancer? I care. I care about you. I care about your business. I care so much. I might be a little aggressive, but I know that I can help you, and I am not leaving until we at least have a definitive yes or no.
100%. Exactly. Maybe if you want to say maybe, and I've emailed this 10,000 times. Maybe if it's maybe, I'm doing you a favor, and it's a no, because I'm not going to work with somebody who's going to be on the fence all the time, because that's the makings of a business about to fail. Right? That's it.
And again, maybes are just lies for the most part, anyways. All it is somebody trying to be right. They're trying to be nice instead of just being honest. And it's one of those things that, like, it's one thing that I really try and do a lot, especially with my kids. There is no maybe. It's either yes or no. Like, you're not being polite or kind by stringing someone along. Like, as a matter of fact, I actually think you're being mean. So it's like, it's either a yes or no decision. That's it.
So. Dude, agreed totally, man. But I love what you just said. Like, when they have an objection, it's your first opportunity to start coaching your client. That's beautiful. I agree.
Wow. Awesome. So now, speaking of coaching, so you converted them. First two moves, you got a brand new client, just signed up. Here you go, and it's like, oh my God, I just got this client. Now what the hell do I do? Right? It's like, now what are the first, like, say, what are your first two go-to moves typically that you would implement and start working on right away?
Okay, so number one, you got to assess the situation, right? Like, the reality. I'd like to say that it's all cookie cutter, step by step. If you have a small business that needs to grow, or you have a big business that's not profitable, two totally different dynamics, right? So let's say you got a bigger business, and let's say big business. Let's just say they're doing $1 million and very little profit. Okay, first thing that you want to go in there and you want to understand their processes, cost of goods sold. You want to go through those expenses. A beauty in a situation like that is often accounts receivable. Like, think about how stupid accounts receivable is. Like, for some reason, this is something that gets neglected with so ridiculous predictability. And it's like, you've earned the business, you've sold the business, you delivered on the business, and you're not getting paid, right? Like, that needs to be something that, you watch like an absolute stinking hawk, right? Absolute stinking hawk. So accounts receivable for sure. Cost of goods sold. Just have a look at their. So again, that you see how the two different dynamics, right? Big company, low profitability, very different roadmap. So, and then you've got the smaller company that's looking to grow. Even in that instance, the question is, what do the margins look like? Like, are they profitable? Because if you have a business with tight profit margins, and then you help them grow, Facebook ads, that sort of stuff, often you can take them from a small profitability to a loss. So the larger you take them, the more their gross revenues grow. They start losing money, right? Like, oh my gosh, like have you done these guys a favor? And the answer is absolutely no. There is an argument to say that you could grow the revenues and then step two, refine the expenses, but that's the wrong order big time, but that can work, right? But that's not the way to do it. But anywho, so yeah, you assess the situation. Then a client that wants to grow, you've got to go into marketing and sales mode big time. So this is where something like a Facebook campaign, something like a LinkedIn campaign, networking, cold calling gets a bad rap, blah, 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 blah. We all know that. But the reality is, you have a small company, needs to get out there. They've just got to pick up, they can go buy a bunch of advertising, but getting to know some folks and building some, potential joint venture type relationships, building some referral networks, it just makes sense. It's just it's a pillar of growing a successful business. So unfortunately, and if you believe in what you do so much. Again, it really shouldn't be a cold call. It's a cold introduction, and you're calling. You don't call them to sell them something. Call and add some value. Call and help them out in some way, shape, or form. So anyways, there's that. But I guess that would lead to psychology in every case. The chokehold on every business, and that's Coke, Pepsi, Ford, Road Dog, your business, my business, everybody listening's business. The chokehold on your company is the psychology of the owner. Conversation over. Okay, so working on their psychology is something that I would absolutely be putting at the top of the list. And then, okay, well, what is that? And I think we're all coaches, so we're all going to have a pretty good instinctual knowledge of where to go and what that looks like. But, just making sure, like if you got a business that did, again, a tiny business, they did $250,000 last year, and their goal is $1 million, okay, and depending upon what their unit of sale is, et cetera, but that might be a little bit lofty. Like multiply 250, why not put a goal of 375,000, work them towards that, do a high five, celebrate. It doesn't mean you get the 375 and stop. It's just you get the 375 and celebrate. But if their goal is $1 million, they got to wait, $750,000 until they high five or celebrate themselves and you. One of the craziest things in the world is that the local sporting team will win a in hockey, right? You got to win 4 rounds of the playoffs in order to win the Stanley Cup. Well, your team wins the first round and you're jumping around the living room and high-fiving your buddies and wearing their jerseys and screaming at the TV, go team, go. But then for your own success, none of the above would be an understatement, right? Think about the craziness of that. So making sure that we're putting, some simple goals and some targets that we can celebrate, not just revenue, by the way, the hiring of a staff member. In our world, like doing a live event when you're a business coach is a really good idea. Well, this is something that should be celebrated. This is something that should be, high five. And then once you say your goal is to put 10 decision makers into that live event, which, by the way, doesn't sound like a lot of people, but I can tell you, if you're a business coach without staff, if you put more than 10 decision makers in a room, your follow-up is probably going to be crap. And now what you're doing is you're smoking good leads, and that's a really dumb way to grow a business. So that's why 10 decision makers at a time is a good roadmap for the average business coach. But say the first event you get 4, and then the next event you get 7, and then the third or fourth event you get the 10, high five, boom, way to go, celebrate that success. So when you're coming back to their psychology, you're going to find having, rather than setting these goals and these lofty goals that without meeting them, they're probably setting that are too, far away. Not such a great idea, because I think it's great just to be able to celebrate success as they're moving along. And you'll find that the other successes will get a lot quicker. In fact, another example is the closer that you get, like, okay, I want you to picture a marathon, okay, 26 miles, insane. What happens in the last 100 meters? Everybody sprints, right? So the closer you get to your goal, the quicker you'll go, right? So again, setting those goals and doing it properly and making multiple makes a lot more sense, but not to mention if they got 250 and their goal is $1 million, it's going to be a long time until they hit that last 100 meters to start sprinting, right? So anywho, so little things like that, but that's where I would start. Again, assess the situation, and then psychology, expenses, and then of course putting together a game plan. Like forming a partnership. There's not many coaching clients that you're ever going to take on where it's not an insanely good idea to immediately form a potential joint venture partnership. Again, in our world, for real simplicity, this is the business coach forming a partnership with a business broker, with a graphic designer that's good and that does a lot of business work, or the accountant is that real obvious one that everybody goes to. Accountants are great when you can partner with them, but I can tell you they're analytically natured with about 90% predictability. So that person can be difficult to get an answer from. You can find that you'll get them enthusiastic on the call, but then all of a sudden, they don't email you back. They don't call you back, and you wonder what the heck happened. It's just they get in their own way, and they're busy in their own world, and they've got these gatekeepers, et cetera, all around them because they need them, by the way. So that's, like for your client not to do that. If I'm a personal trainer, I want to go build a relationship with the girls down the road that do Botox. And if I do Botox, I want to form a relationship with the personal trainer in the local gym, right, in the tanning salon. So to not go form a solid partnership doesn't make it's normally going to go straight to the top of the list. So those are the places that I would start. But psychology, assessing the situation, and then psychology of the owner would be absolutely top of the list. In fact, one of the things I do, Road Dog, like I come up with a goal, right? So again, let's just, for everybody listening, everybody wants to hit $1 million. So if that were to be my goal, and that's $83,333,000 a month. You guys have probably heard me say that before. You'll hear me say it again. And why do I say it? Because everybody tells me they want to hit $1 million a year, and then I ask them how much that is per month, and I get radio silence. That makes no bloody sense to me, right? Like you can't, if you've set that goal and then you haven't reversed engineered it a little bit, you're probably battling, right? You're going to battle to get there. But anyway, so if my goal was to get to $83,333 a month, I would write that down on a piece of paper, and not, iPads and notes and, computers and all that stuff nowadays. Very, very powerful to take a pen and a piece of paper and write this stuff down. But what I will do, and I've done this hundreds of times, but I write down my goal, and then I write it down on a piece of paper, and I write it down so many times, just one line underneath the other, and then immediately beside, and then I'll even write on top of it, so that when I'm done writing down that goal, the goal is that I can't see, if it's a white piece of paper, I can't see white on the paper anymore. I just see blue, which is the color of the pen that I wrote down my goal with. So that's an example I have found. Then, by the way, I flip it over, and by this time, by the way, the paper's not the greatest on the back. It doesn't matter. I'll end up with a few holes when I'm done, but I'll write down the goal on the back side of it as well. And now the paper, I literally can't see any white on the paper. I got a couple of holes, but I've written down my goal hundreds of times. Magically, I find that it happens. So weird little stuff like that, but the power and the simplicity, it's like you don't need to go do coaches training in order to be able to do that. Maybe setting the proper goal and expectations with your client, the training would be a little bit helpful, but there's a fair bit of common sense involved here. And I think that can work really, really well. But psychology and assessing the situation, I think you asked me for two. Those are the two that I go to.
Awesome. I really want to jump into something else, but we're getting really, really, really short on time, and I've got a closing call in a couple minutes. Because I want to talk about expectations and setting those expectations with clients as well. I think that's a good topic maybe for our next episode or next week, in terms of sitting down with that new client and having an expectations conversation with them, because I hear that question quite a bit as well. But anyways, final words, parting words. What do you want to leave everybody with this week?
I think, look, I got to tell you, the first question that I heard, I hope I did a good enough job of answering that, but just, what's a question that I wish I got asked that I don't get asked? And, again, it's always leads and clients, and it's no different than the actor going to 100 different auditions and thinking that's going to solve the problem. The real question is, are you a good actor? And most of them aren't. And then they're wondering why they're no good at it, right? And by the way, when they show up, they don't have the confidence. Like when I'm trying to close somebody, I've got total certainty that the program works and that I can help them. And I'm just totally committed. I don't necessarily know exactly what's that going to be, because there's often things like a divorce that comes up later. Maybe there's an addiction comes back later. I commit myself to doing whatever it takes to get this client over the line. And that's where, just refining your coaching skills and just taking a solid, like an hour a day would be an example, to go read blogs, read books, get a pen and paper and write down. Like, here's a great exercise for everybody. If you feel like, when you're honest with yourself, you know what, this is an area that I need some help with. Here's an exercise for you. I want you to pick any category of business. Okay. So it's a restaurant, it's a realtor, what have you. I want you to get a pen and a piece of paper, and I want you to write down, and by the way, I want to be a computer, Mr. Google. I want to be close to you. And I want you to write down 50 tactical, not the big picture and not the fluffy crap, right? I want 50 ways for you to help that individual business owner. Okay? So it's a realtor, right? You're going to find 50 different ways to help them. Well, when you're done that, and now you start, then you pick up the phone, heaven forbid, and call a few realtors, to help them. your level of, like your intestinal fortitude is going to be 100-fold what it normally is, because you can't wait to exercise this magic on those clients, right? And the certainty that you're going to have within yourself is going to blow your mind. So that's an excellent exercise for everybody. But that's just an excellent exercise for all coaches, and that's something you should do on a regular basis. But come up with 50, and then, by the way, 50 is friggin' hard. Here's more magic. Is you'll often find that because let's say you do 25 reasonably easily, right? So you hit 25, because there'll be some basics, writing down goals, time management, 80-20 rules, like finding the 20% of the clients that derive 80% of the business, right? That's something every business owner should do, and pretty much none of them have, right? So that would, sending a thank you note to all, the 20% of the clients that bring in the 80%, pretty basic, but this would be a really, really good idea. There's that basic stuff, but there's also the more advanced, type techniques with, selling more booze at the end, selling more coffee at the end of the order, bringing, like, immediately when somebody walks in, hey, do you guys want some, do you want sourdough bread or garlic bread? They say yes. You just added $6 to the order, right? They're hungry. They just walked in a restaurant. They're hungry. You added $6 to the order. It adds up over the course of 12 months, right? But anyway, so you're going to write down all 50. When you get to 40 to 50, like the last 10, you'll often find your home runs live there where you would have stopped normally a long time ago. So it's why to really stretch yourself. And 50, I think, is about the right number. Like, that could be pretty hard to do for any excellent coach. But with a little bit of homework and some Googling and whatnot, and really, deep concentration, maybe some meditation on it, you'll find some absolute beauties, but sometimes the home runs happen a lot later than you would have otherwise assumed. So Road Dogg, that's what I would say as my parting words. But anywho, appreciate you being here, bud. I appreciate all you guys listening. Again, if you could give us a review on iTunes, of course, that would be appreciated, and a rating. Also, if you can share this on social, if you watch this and you think other coaches should be listening to it as well, if you could share it on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, etc., of course, that would be appreciated. So on behalf of myself, Road Dogg, and Business Coaching Secrets, appreciate you guys, and we will speak to you on the next podcast.
Make it a great week, everybody.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0 to train business coaches how to find any small business owner more than $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. This becomes a business coach's superpower. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at Focused.com.